Welcome to the Right Brain Loves Left podcast, where we dive deep into the dynamic world of small business success. I'm your host, Regina Garay, and I'm thrilled to have you join us today. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Right Brain Loves Left podcast. My name is Regina Garay of Right Brain Loves Left. And today I have a very, very special guest. Her name is Kristen Toscano. She is a quantum human design specialist. And we are going to talk to her all about her business and some of the great guidance she has in store for you. So welcome, Kristen. Thank you for joining me here today.
Thank you, Regina, for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation.
I know, me too. Me too. I've always wanted to learn more about quantum human design and how it affects small businesses in particular. So I am super excited to learn from you today as well. For those of you who are watching or listening, Kristen and I met through virtual networkers. She runs the chapter that I am a part of, and we've known each other for over a year now, I think, and into each other. And I have to say, every time I speak with you or I see you, you're so calm and collected, and I just love that, because sometimes I feel frazzled in my business. And, I want to get there, Kristen.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. It's funny because what I've learned is I don't always feel super grounded, but it's the thing in my own design where I'm here to gain wisdom. And so I don't know, I guess I feel like maybe it's a reflection of I'm actually learning the things I'm supposed to learn in this lifetime.
And it goes back to, because I teach time management as part of some of the things I do. And sometimes there are times where time gets away from me. So it's something I think that's very relatable, that we all have struggles with time. No one is perfect. And so, it's endearing to hear that, you sometimes get frazzled too, because I do see you as a very calm and collected person. So I think we all small business owners, we do that a lot. We try to make the best of everything, and we're just making the best as we go along. All right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to dive right in, if that's okay. So
Sure.
for those who are not familiar, Kristen, if you don't mind telling me, what is quantum human design and how does it differ from other coaching methods?
Sure. So quantum human design is a tool, and it really brings together ancient wisdom, things like astrology, the I Ching, the chakra system, and the Judaic Kabbalah, and synthesizes it with quantum mechanics and really gives us our own energetic blueprint of how we move through the world. But what I love about it is that it's a tool that I use in my coaching. So, we all come to coaching with different tools. And so this is one that really helps my clients understand how they make decisions, how they show up in the world, in their relationships, where some of those patterns that might be keeping them stuck or impacting their communication might be coming from.
Yeah, because you can continue doing the same thing and you're just like, and maybe try something different and you're like, what is it? Is it me? And so it's good to explore that. I love that. Okay.
Yeah. And real quick, one thing, probably the thing that I hear most often from clients is they've never felt so seen, because it validates for them all of the things that they felt about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But someone has told them that's wrong, or they shouldn't be that way, or just society tells us, no, you should do it this way instead. And it's like, oh, but that doesn't feel right. But we kind of force ourselves down that path. So what I find for my clients is it confirms for them those things they already felt and allows them to then lean in and leverage those, because that's where their natural gifts are.
That's true. Because if we fight against them, it just doesn't happen, and then we wonder, what am I doing wrong? And you're kind of banging your head against the wall.
Yeah. And we get to that, like, why haven't I figured it out yet? Place.
Mm-hmm. Very important, especially for small business owners. How did you get started in this path? What were the moments that led you down here?
Yeah. So I spent 20 years as a physical therapist.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
and started working in a PT clinic that was doing PT driven wellness, really looking at how do we move not just to injury recovery, but really support people holistically in their health. And I love that. So I went down the path of health coaching because I said, okay, well, if I'm going to help people, I really need to learn the behavioral change piece. I've got the fitness piece. The nutrition piece was starting to come into PT a little bit, understanding inflammatory foods and whatnot.
Mm.
And I tried to force myself down that path of like, okay, I came from this clinical space. I need to stay in this clinical lane doing functional health coaching. But what I realized over time is that it didn't feel good. I was, focusing with my clients on what they were eating, how they were moving, what supplements they were taking, or how to shift those to really support them where they needed to be supported. And I realized that like what lit me up was hearing their stories, understanding what was going on in their lives that was leading them down this path of overwhelm, stress, burnout that was now showing up in their bodies. And so I went down kind of my own self-discovery path around my identity as a PT.
Mhm.
And it really led me to this as a tool. And like I said, I just love the practical applications of it. And I love personal personality assessments, but I always wonder, am I answering these the way that I really am, or the way that I think I should be, or I want to be? And this takes that out of the equation because you get your blueprint, your design from your birth date, time, and location.
Ah, okay, okay. And so so there is a like a personality test to this in addition to the tools that you use for the assessment.
So it's just you plug in your birth date, time, and location into a software, and it pulls up a chart,
Mhm, mhm.
which is your blueprint, and then it gives you clues into your personality, how you move through the world, how you make decisions, all those practical ways that we can understand ourselves.
Interesting, interesting. It's similar to when I look at like, okay, so I'm an Aries, I don't know if it
Mm-hmm.
figures in, but I'm an Aries. And whenever I read anything about Aries, I'm like, accurate. And then one day I was like, it's probably accurate for every single one. Let me read what Taurus is. And then I'm like, oh no, that's not me at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's and my husband is a Virgo and I love Virgos and so he's perfect. It's really incredible how they relate. So I'm so intrigued by this, Kristen.
Yeah, because astrology is one piece of what the human design system. So there is definitely that parallel there.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So if let's go into success stories. So you're working with one of your clients. How can you share a success story of how this has come to be, how this has come together for them?
Yeah, sure. So I had a client I was working with who was really shifting some things in her business, really getting specific on what it was that she wanted to offer and getting ready to redo the website. And so, you're going back to all of those decisions of how do I want to present myself to the world? And one of the things that she learned from her human design is she was meant to make decisions by following her gut that tells her, this is right for me, or it's not right for me. And it's not always logical. And so as she was going through, like, what services was she going to put on her website, she made a list of all the possible things and then went through the list and went, okay, this is going to stay. This is going to go. This is going to stay. This is going to go based on what her gut told her in her body, not from her mind.
Mm.
And she's been able to kind of really carry that decision making process through with her throughout her business, particularly as clients would come and say, okay, I know we're working on this, but can you also do this? And so, also in her chart is an element that may make her prone to people pleasing because she feels other people's emotional energy, like the
Mhm.
archetype of that emotional empath. And so understanding that, like, oh, okay, that's a pattern for me is to say yes because I want to make sure my clients are happy.
Mhm.
But how can I take that step back and say, okay, but is this really something I want to be doing? And what is my gut telling me? And using that to make those decisions and identify where those boundaries need to be set.
Yeah. And it's also that, understanding that, taking that step back and listening to your gut instead of saying yes in the moment because you're that
Mm-hmm.
people pleaser, and just saying, I just need a few days to think about this, or let me think on this. Even that shift is important to know. And if you don't realize you're a people pleaser, if that's something that, you help with, that you help people
Mm-hmm.
realize, then it's a very powerful tool in our own arsenal, because we're like, I'm not going to say, I'm going to give myself that space.
Yeah. And sometimes I think too, what the human design chart can do is it helps you identify some nuance in that. So there's that archetype of the emotional empath that feels people's emotions and kind of takes them on.
Mhm.
But then I have another client who's not, doesn't have that archetype of the emotional empath in her chart, but she has this thing on her in her chart where the recurring fear that shows up is that fear of letting others down. And so when I asked her, I'm like, is it really the emotional empath piece, or is it really that you don't want to let others down? And that was like, oh, that there is a difference in how that feels. And
Yeah.
so being able to recognize that pattern, that just subtle nuance in the pattern
So
can
your
help you
client was
shift
able
it.
to pull together the best website for herself,
Mm-hmm.
and it felt right.
And the best website with the things on it that she actually wanted to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's the goal too, to go forth in our business. I mean, we work so hard in our small business. Everybody always thinks, oh, you can set your own schedule. We probably work harder than a lot of different people that work within companies. I'm not saying that as a blanket. I'm just, I'm a small business owner. It feels like I work a lot,
Yeah.
so
Well, because we go from wearing one hat to wearing all the hats a lot of the times.
that's true. Today I am a bookkeeper. Tomorrow I'm going to be an editor, a video editor. Yeah, so it goes that way. All right, thank you. All right, so what strategies do you use to stay aligned and avoid burnout, especially as we were talking, when a small business can be so demanding?
Mm-hmm. I think for me, it's part of it is understanding that work rest cycle, like giving myself space, like making sure that in my calendar, I have time blocked off that's just for me.
So important.
Um, yeah. And for me, like we talked about the grounding, I don't always feel grounded. So I need time to be like, okay, I have my practices that support me in that. Because I can get, which is part of the patterns in my design, is I can get to the part where I'm like just busy for the sake of busy. And so it's like, oh wait, create that space, get grounded, figure out, what is the thing that actually needs my focus today.
Yeah.
And if I don't take that pause at the beginning of the day, then I don't actually move forward. So I think, just having that space to really ground and get centered and prioritize.
Yeah, I'm going to take that to heart, because there are times when I do busy work, and it's something that's not due till next week, let's say. And I'm like, oh, let me just get ahead with it. But it actually cuts into my personal time, because I just want to keep the little feet moving under the water, the little duck.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
And that probably shows up in your chart. For me, that shows up as what's known as an undefined root center. And it's this pressure that, like, if I just get this to do list done, I'll be free.
Mhm.
But the to do list never ends.
It never ends. It never ends. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's one of the things, and it requires consistency, putting yourself in your calendar every week, or even,
Mhm.
of course, every day, but making sure you have that
Yeah.
and being consistent,
Yes.
because we can have a good goal of it for the first week and we do great. And then the second week is like, so
Yeah. But also then not beating yourself up when that second week things fall off and just going like, oh, so that happened. Let me put myself back on my calendar, not staying stuck in this story about how I didn't do what I said I was going to do.
thank you, Kristen. Yes. That's true. Okay, loving this talk already. All right, let's say someone is stuck in their career or their business. What's one piece of advice that you would give them?
I think, stuck can mean a lot of different things. And so I think it can help first to get curious about what's really going on. Is it a stuck because, oh, there's a skill that I don't have that I need to learn to move myself forward in my business? If that's the case, I think find the people that have that skill.
Mhm.
And I think one of my biggest lessons is like, oh, maybe I don't need every one of those people to teach me that skill and I do that myself. Like maybe I can just let them stay in their lane and take that skill from me and I can just let that go.
Mhm.
Um, but I think sometimes we can get stuck because, particularly in business, everyone has an opinion or a strategy that's going to be the thing that's going to move you forward. And so sometimes I feel like I know this has been my experience. I've had to just shut out all the noise
Mm.
and come back to myself and just take a pause, stop listening to all the podcasts, stop doing all the free train webinars.
This one, except for this one, you can listen. No, I'm just kidding. Continue.
But it's that finding that balance, right? Like, because everyone's going to have a different lens. And so, like, how do you find your center within that? And
Right.
sometimes it is just shutting it down for a moment so that you can really tap into, well, what's my truth here in this moment? What do I really need?
Yeah, I love that. And it can lead to finding, the ways that actually speak to you rather, or the processes that you can learn that speak to you instead of those that promise, oh, you're going to make this and you're going to do that. And if it's not something you feel or a process you're going to use, yeah. So it gives you the time to intuit that. I love that. So,
Yeah, and really break that. Like I've definitely fallen into that shiny object syndrome pattern of like, but this thing and then this thing and then this thing, and it's like, okay, but what is my truth? And 70% of us really are meant to respond with that gut, this is for me, and this isn't for me. And so knowing that, it's like, okay, I've been scrolling through social media and I see this training. Like, what does my gut say about that? Like, rather than that FOMO of like, I've got to just do them all or whatever it is, like, what's my truth here? And
yeah.
just checking in with the gut or your intuition. And so your design kind of lets you know, is your process to check in with your gut, is your process you need to talk it out and you need to hear yourself speak your truth, and that's how you know what your next right step is. um,
Wow.
so
Yeah.
yeah, it really gives you that practical,
Yeah,
this
guys.
is how I know my truth.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. So in your business, what has been the best piece of advice that you've received? Because you give a lot of good guidance. What have you received? What's
Yeah, I think the best piece of advice that it's taken me a while to learn is really looking at how can you stay more in your zone of genius and automate, delegate, or eliminate the things that aren't.
yeah, that's that's so simple. And yet and yet probably the hardest. Yeah. So I can
Uh-huh.
hear you like this has taken me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay.
And I've spent so much money on trainings and learning all of the different things. And it's like, oh, wait, but maybe I can just let someone else take that. And it's really like, I just wonder how much money have I spent learning the thing and not implementing it?
Mhm.
Where if I had just spent the money to have someone else do it, it'd be done.
I've literally that's good. I do a lot of trainings. I take a lot of courses. I like to learn though. I like to learn,
Me too.
and so even if I end up not doing it, I know I like knowing what's, how's it happening, what's it doing. So yeah. So I guess that it just is it's different design for different people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And speaking of continuing, going back to the quantum human design, what is a common misconception that you run into when talking about
Yeah.
quantum human design?
So I think once people start to understand, once people get their design,
Mhm.
like it tells you like different elements, your type, your strategy, your authority. And so it'll tell you, for example, I'm a time bender or manifesting generator. And so people put these labels then on themselves. I think like all personality assessments, right? Like I have this label that goes with them. But it's really not meant to put you in a box. It's really meant to start to give you some language so that you can go out and experiment and play in the world and see what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Because it's a system, but it's a system that helps you get to your truth. So there's kind of this conundrum there between like, well, how do you have a system that really is meant to teach me how to trust myself?
It's, but it's a good system because it moves you kind of away from the system and more into the design of
Yes.
you.
Yes.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm
Yeah.
loving this chat. Okay. So, can you share what's one trend in the wellness or the coaching industry that you are excited about?
Yeah. I think kind of along with what we just talked about, there's this trend around moving away from having these gurus to really being your own guru. And that's really what this system is really meant to do. It's meant to help you start to understand your own experience
Mhm.
so that you can start to pay attention to what really feels good to you and using that as your guide.
I like it. I like it because so it really is all about getting to know yourself the best way, deeply, so that you know exactly what to offer in your business, what to say when opportunities come up that don't align with who you are or what you like to do. And basically make your decisions. I mean, you can base them on your gut, you can look at some research, but you're going to make your own decision as to what. Yeah, that's very good, especially for small business owners, because we are it sometimes. So we might have a
Yeah.
small team, but that's it. Okay. I like it.
Mhm.
And all right, so let's say you work with somebody. How do you measure success in the work that you do, both for yourself and for your clients? What's the success that you see?
Yeah, for me, it all comes down to sustainability. I talked at the beginning about helping in the PT world deal with the physical manifestations of that stress and burnout and really wanting to help people be more sustainable. But I
Mhm.
think when we look at how we measure success that way, we have to look at both pieces, both you know, the things we typically think of when we think of success. Is the business making money? Like it needs to make money to be sustainable.
Mhm.
So looking at that, but then also how sustainable are the people in the business? Whether that's you as the business owner or if you have a team, like members of your team, is the business functioning in a way that allows you to be a whole person?
Yeah, because that's important too. Because I mean, it's the most important in a way. It's kind of balanced, because you have to make a living and you have to
Mhm.
make a living, you know.
Yeah.
So both in unique ways. Um,
Yes, I love that.
Kristen, thank you so much for joining me today. If you can let the readers, every single time I say this, I say that the listeners and the watchers, if you can let them know how to find you, how to get a hold of you, where they go.
Yeah, you can find me. My website's kristentoscano.com. And if you go to my website and you go to the Start Here page, you can get your chart. And
Oh,
that's a great place to start because it will give you that initial like how do I make decisions that are right for me. So you can get that right on my website, but then connect with me on LinkedIn, Kristen Toscano. Um, I think those are probably the two best places.
yeah. Okay. And it's KristenToscano.com, KristenToscano.com. Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure because if they're not watching or they don't have access to that, I want to make sure and they're listening that they have access to that. So if you'd like to explore learning more about quantum human design, please reach out to Kristen. And Kristen, thank you so much for that all the good insights into small business owners and what we do and how we can better develop ourselves. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Regina, for having the space.
I'll see you soon. Bye, everyone.
Sounds good.